Hello students, today I am going to teach you gradation of muscular activity and disorders of skeletal muscle. In the previous class, we have gone through the topic single muscle twitch and factors affecting force of contraction. In this class, we will go in more details about the skeletal muscle. Okay. To the characteristics of skeletal muscle in the body. The body have some special characteristics that are the muscle tone, nature of muscle contraction in body, gradation of muscle activity and muscle activity. Coming to the muscle tone. What is muscle tone? Muscle tone is a state of slight contraction with a certain degree of vigour and tension. All the skeletal muscle exhibit muscle tone. However, it is more marked in the anti-gravity muscles that are extensions of the lower limb, trunk muscles and muscles of neck. Now coming to maintenance of muscle tone. Okay, muscle tone is maintained by the asynchronous discharge of impulse from gamma motor neurons in the anterior gray horn cells of the spinal cord concerned with the motor nerve supply of the muscle. Previously, we have studied that alpha motor neurons were involved in the recruitment of motor units. Here, the gamma motor neurons are involved. Now, coming to nature of muscle contraction in body. What happens here? The simple muscle twitch is not a physiological event. Okay. Means it is not seen in the body, only not a single muscle get activated at a time. Basically, all contractions in the body are tetanic in nature. Weak contractions result from low frequency of firing that are from 5 to 10 per second of motor units. The expected jerkiness and the disadvantage of incomplete tetanus are overcome by the asynchronous discharge of group of motor units. Okay, in the body it is not seen that only one or two motor units are activated once. If it is seen, then there will be jerkiness in the movement of the body part. So when one group is firing, the other are silent and vice versa. Okay, the expected jerkiness and the disadvantage of incomplete tetanus are overcome by the asynchronous discharge of group of motor units. And you know that when one group is firing, the other are silent and vice versa. These are called asynchronicity of discharge. Now the algebraic summation occurs, the individual variations are evened out and a smooth contraction result. The degree to which the motor neurons discharge is asynchronous. Okay, is related both to the force and duration of contraction. Now with increasing firing rates and of course with more recruitment of motor units, contractions become stronger until and beyond the tetanizing rate. Okay, till the tetanizing rate is found, and the contractions are sustained and powerful. Now coming to gradation of force of contraction in the intact body. Okay, for performing different kind of work, example picking up a pen from the table or lifting 10 kg weight, same muscles are involved, but situations muscle can generate different degree of power. This property of skeletal muscle is known as gradation of force of contraction. Now, gradation of muscle power in muscle is made possible by certain factors which affect the force of contraction. These are the recruitment of motor unit, frequency of nerve impulse, and synchronization of impulse. Now, coming to recruitment of motor unit, the force of contraction produced in a muscle depends upon the number of motor unit recruited, and we have gone through the topic in detail in the previous class. Now, coming to frequency of nerve impulse, the motor control system in the brain can vary the force of contraction by varying the frequency of nerve impulses stimulating the muscle. As the impulse frequency increases, its effects are summated, okay, and the muscle tension increases. Now, coming to synchronization of impulses. At any one time, the motor units are in different phases of activity. That is, some are contracting and others are relaxing. Due to algebraic summation, the muscle gives a steady but weak pull. With increasing synchronization of the motor units, the force of contraction increases. In this figure, you can see here, as the force of contraction increases when the frequency is increased, okay, and the contraction goes on increasing, the force of contraction goes on increasing with the increasing recruitment of the motor units, increasing frequency, and the synchronization of impulses. Now, coming to the muscle fatigue. What is muscle fatigue? It is the failure of a muscle to maintain tension as a result of previous contractile activity. Okay? If muscle is allowed to rest after the onset of fatigue, it recovers its ability to contract, means it overcomes the fatigue. Fatigue refers to the fatigue of most of muscle that develops after prolonged general exercise such as marathon running and competitive football match playing. Okay, now coming to the next part, that is onset and recovery. The onset and recovery of fatigue depends upon the following things, that are the intensity and duration of exercise and type of muscle fiber. The type of muscle fibers are the fast glycolytic fibers fatigue early and also recovers rapidly from fatigue. Slow oxidative fibers do not fatigue early, but they also require longer time to rest for complete recovery. What are the fast glycolytic fibers? These are the small muscle fibers of the fingers, okay, and the toes, and that of the eye muscle, okay, and the slow oxidative fibers are found in the anti-gravity muscles and the muscles that maintain the body posture, like that of the back muscle, leg muscles, okay. Now, coming to site, causes and mechanism of fatigue. Okay, in human body, the sites of fatigue are in the following order. Fatigue of synapse of central nervous system due to slight hypoxia occurs first of all. It is particularly of high intensity in short duration exercises. To the characteristics of skeletal muscle in the body. The body have some spatial characteristics that are the muscle tone, nature of muscle contraction in body, gradation of muscle activity, and muscle activity. Now coming to electromyography. Electromyography refers to the technique of recording the total electrical activity of the motor nerve and the muscle under study. The machine used to record the said electrical activity is called electromyograph, and the record obtained is called electromyogram. Electromyogram, what is it? It is the recording obtained by the electromyograph of the electrical activity of the motor nerve and the muscle. Normally at rest there is complete electrical silence and no spontaneous activity is recorded except for the insertion activity and the end plate noise. Here you can see a picture where the electromyography is done, and it is the position of resistance given to the person during the performance of electromyography. Okay, during electromyography, first of all the electrodes are kept on the muscle to be studied, that are the biceps or triceps, any muscle, and then the graph is recorded in the resting state of the hand. Then after the voluntary movement by the person, the hand is moved, okay, moved or it is bended, and the graph is recorded. Here you can see during the voluntary movement or the static movement, the graph, the amplitude and the frequency of graph has increased. At rest there was only mild flickering movements, okay, that were of the and plate noise and the insertion activity. Now, in the next step, the person bends his hand against resistance. A person is giving resistance and the person doing the activity is moving the hand against resistance, and then the graph recorded, you can see here, is a very high amplitude and of the high frequency. Here the movement is voluntary but the contraction is strong. Okay. Now coming to the voluntary activity during muscle contraction, which I have told you now. The potential changes recorded during muscle contraction is called motor unit potential. The graph that you have seen is that of the motor unit potential. The electromyograph records obtained during different grades of muscle contraction have following characteristics. On minimal voluntary contraction, only a single or two small motor units in the vicinity of needle electrode give off electrical discharge. With the progressive increase in the voluntary contraction, the firing rate of small units increases until it reaches a certain frequency when larger units are recruited. During maximal contraction, so many motor units are recruited and thus the so many rhythmically recurring motor unit potentials become superimposed upon one another on the oscilloscope screen that it is impossible to determine their individual characteristic. Okay, in the here. In this graph, I have told you in the first relaxed state, the graph is taken. Here only flickers are seen in the graph. The motor unit potential are not seen. When the hand starts contracting voluntarily, the motor unit potentials will increase and the graph will show increase in the amplitude and frequency. When the contractions go on increasing, when there is maximum contraction, the amplitude and the frequency will be so high and they will be superimposed on each other that we cannot see it differently, and we cannot, it is impossible to determine their individual character. Okay. And again, when the muscle starts relaxing, the graph will show decrease in the amplitude and frequency. Coming to abnormal spontaneous activities, these are the fasciculation potential, which resembles motor unit potentials and represents the involuntary contraction of muscle fibers of single motor unit. And the fibrillation potential are of very short duration and low amplitude potential. These are seen sometimes. Disorders of skeletal muscle. Now I am going through few disorders of the skeletal muscle that you should know about them, and these are the muscle dystrophy. What is it? It is a syndrome which occurs due to genetic mutation and is characterized by progressive muscle weakness. What happens here? The muscle mass goes on degenerating and the fat mass is unchanged, and there occurs weakness in the muscle. Now coming to myotonia. It is a disorder which occurs due to abnormalities of the sodium and chloride channels caused by abnormal genes on chromosome 7, 17 and 19. It is characterized by an abnormally prolonged muscle relaxation after voluntary contraction. Means after voluntary contraction, the muscle gets relaxed for the long time during which next contraction is not possible. Now coming to myasthenia gravis, this abnormality you have been studied in the neuromuscular junction. It is a disorder of neuromuscular junction characterized by grave muscle weakness. Coming to abnormal muscle tone, it is found sometimes the normal muscle tone may be increased or decreased, constituting abnormal muscle tone. Sometimes you can see the muscle tone of the hands or the neck muscle is increased, or sometimes the tones are seen that a very low muscle tone, the tone of the hands or the calf muscles are very low. Fibrillation and denervation hypersensitivity. What is it? Fibrillation is characterized by fine irregular contractions of individual muscle fiber, and denervation hypersensitivity refers to when the muscle becomes highly sensitive to acetylcholine. When motor neurons to skeletal muscle is cut, then muscle gradually becomes hypersensitive to acetylcholine. In degenerative hypersensitivity, the motor end plate is not only depolarized by acetylcholine, but the surrounding area is also depolarized and whole muscle becomes sensitive. This may be because of increase in number of active receptors for acetylcholine, that is upregulation of receptors, and decreased uptake of released neurotransmitters. Here are the figure of muscle dystrophy. You can see in the previous figure, the arms are seen here. The biceps and the triceps muscles have bulky muscle mass, and in the muscle dystrophy you can see the muscle mass is very thin, and that's why the force of contraction will also be weak. Now coming here to the myasthenia gravis, as we know it is a problem of the neuromuscular junction, and so there will be failure of contraction of the muscle or weak contraction. This myasthenia gravis can be seen in the different muscles of the body, that are of the eye muscle, eyelid muscle, that are the ptosis. You can see here ptosis is the problem, which means the eyelid can't be opened up fully, and that are the muscle wasting and the fatigue induced by the physical activity, respiratory muscle failure causing breathing difficulties, diplopia. Then diplopia is the fatigue of the eye muscle, nasal regurgitation, food regurgitation, dysphagia. Okay.